Right. Here we're learning. This is a speech given by Lubavitcher Rebbe. It's written in pamphlets, which are called here. See, Dvar Malchut. We got this. I don't know if this is come opposite by you. By me, it looks okay here. Dvar Malchut. It comes out. There's also the old books. These are speeches which were given. The last speeches given by Lubavitcher Rebbe in 1991, 1992. In 1992, the Rebbe had a stroke, and afterwards he couldn't speak. Okay, so we're learning also here also about this idea of the tzorat, of this idea of leprosy. And the Rebbe explains that it exists today, not in the same form as it existed back then, but it exists today. What today is tzorat, this leprosy, exile. The exile, the terrible exile that we're in, is a concealment of God's life, God's light, God's truth. God's reality, it's concealed from us. That's called exile. That's called Metzora. Interestingly enough, the Moshiach is called a Metzora. Moshiach is called a leper, for lack of a better word, leper. So the Rebbe points out that in these two Torah portions that we read this Shabbos, that we're learning this week, is hinted at this whole entire process of exile and Mashiach and redemption. And that after Mashiach comes, there won't be any more exile. There won't be any more ignorance. There won't be any more death. There won't be any more confusion. And that's hinted at, I'm just summarizing what we learned, by this week's, the fact that these two Torah portions that we have, their titles are the opposite of their content. The title of the first portion we're learning is called Tazria. That means giving birth. But the content is the laws of leprosy. The second Torah portion is called leprosy, Metzora, that's the name of it. But its content is healing leprosy. So the first one has a good title with a bad content, and the second Torah portion we learn has a bad title with a good content. So the Rebbe explained that these are four different levels, stages in the exile that we're in now. Tazria is talking about the redemption. The redemption is waiting for it. Woman giving birth. Tazria means to give birth. The birth of the Mashiach. What does it depend on? It depends on Metzora. It depends on leprosy. The darkness of exile really is coming from a tremendously high place of godliness. And then that will reveal Metzora. That's going to be the Mashiach. He's called a Metzora. Because he suffers, because whatever. And then afterwards is the healing of the Tzorat. That's going to be in the future redemption. It's going to be impossible for there to be any disease or death or bad things. So in other words, it starts off with something good. That's the redemption. And it says, how do we attain this good? By revealing the true essence of the exile, Metzora. Then the second Torah portion is talking about the Metzora. That's the Mashiach. And he is going to bring a situation where you can never go back to exile again. The healing of it. According to this, now we can connect this to the month of Iyar. Now we're in the month of Iyar. Chodesh Iyar, the month of Iyar. That's this month. Did I record one? Yeah. We're now in the month of Iyar. Huh? Iyar. The month of Iyar. This is the second month of the year. The first, we're just leaving the month of Nisan, right? Nisan is the first month of the Jewish calendar. The first day of the Jewish calendar is Tishrei. That's when man was created. That's like six months earlier. It's on the other side of the calendar. And we just finished the month of Nisan. Nisan is the first. I don't remember what I just finished saying. The first day of the Jewish calendar is Tishrei. That's the day man was born. Tishrei. That's the first day. 6 months later, the first month of the Jewish calendar, the months are counted. The first month, second month, third month, it's counted from when the Jews got out of Egypt. That's Nisan. So to speak, Nisan, the counting of the months, that's Jewish. That's the Jewish calendar. That's the Jewish calendar. And the counting of the days, everybody counts days, right? Counting of the days, we start from Tishrei, when man was created. Okay. But now we're talking about the Jews getting out of Egypt, receiving the Torah. That was getting out of Egypt to receive the Torah. That was in the month of Nisan. That's the first month of the year. The second month of the year is the month of Iyar. The month of Iyar, this is the second month of the year. Then the month of Nisan, God did everything. God did it all. The month of Nisan, God took us out of Egypt, right? God gave us bread from heaven. God split the sea. God did it all. That's the month of Nisan. Miracles. Nisan is miracles. Nes, miracles. God did it all. The month after Nisan, we're on our own. We have to walk through the desert. We're the ones that count the Omer. Now we're serving God what's called from below to above. After the revelation from above to below, which was in the month of Nisan, then in it were made amazing miracles for the Jewish people, until there was even made double miracles. Nisan. What was the double miracles? Not only did God did miracles, but God revealed himself. When the Jews got out of Egypt, it says that God revealed his essence to them and he redeemed them. This is the month of redemption. Until the revelation of every of taking away all limitations. God took them out of Egypt. The Jewish, they didn't have to worry about anything. No enemies, no, they were surrounded by clouds that protected them. They were given bread from heaven and water from a rock. They had no worries, the Jewish people. That's the month of Nisan, miracles. Yeshlom, we can say that in this series of months, Nisan and then Iyar, is stressed the attachment, the connection, and the sheikhs and the relevance of the joining between both of them. That the highest revelations, which are in the month of Nisan, are drawn down and revealed into day-to-day life by means of our service from below to above. A power, l'chabron, to join miracles of godliness and day-to-day life. How can we join these together? This comes from even a higher power, which is higher than both of them. Kamudgash, like we're going to say in this, in the counting of the Omer, in the counting of Sfirat Omer, in the days between Passover and Shavuot, and especially on this day, the second day of Iyar. The second day of Iyar, and this is the first day of the regular days of the month of Iyar. After Rosh Chodesh, the first day of the month is like a holy day. The second day, this is what's called Tiferet Shabbat Tiferet. We talked about this before. Every day of counting the Omer is another aspect of God's 49 spiritual aspects and 49 aspects of our soul. 49 aspects of our soul, especially our emotions. They correspond to God's 49 aspects of God's emotions. What are the 49 aspects of God's emotions and our emotions? It says, really, there's 7 aspects of God's emotions. What's called chesed, gavura, tiferet, love, the severity, balance, etc. But each one of those 7 also contains 7. And every day we count 1. When it comes down to the second day of Iyar, it's Tiferet of Tiferet. That's the third day of the third week that we're counting. Tiferet Shabbat Tiferet. That's the day when the 4th Rebbe of Chabad was born. Sha'al Yadada, by means of this, is joined both of these 2 aspects. Tiferet is balance. And this is the power to join together godliness and worldliness, to join them together. Cave insists that the revelations are very high. Chodesh Shel Geula, this is the month of Nisan, is the month of redemption. So it's drawn down below by means of our service. Therefore, there is negated the possibility of exile. But what will be a future redemption, eternal. Okay, what are we talking about? Somebody has their something open over here, and so we can hear what you're saying, which is might be more interesting than what I'm saying, but it's nevertheless it is. Oh, here, I think it's here. There we go. Oh, good. Okay, no problem. Okay. Okay, here, this is a big problem in Judaism. Let's just take a very basic thing in Judaism, right? In Judaism, a person, let's say he's religious. He's religious and he learns Torah, he prays, he does everything. And then afterwards he says, okay, now you got to get married and you got to go out and get a job. Okay, before he was sitting in yeshiva and he was learning and he was like in heaven. He was getting fed. Maybe the food wasn't the greatest food and the bed wasn't the greatest bed, but he didn't. He was given for free. You don't look at what is that, a gift horse in the mouth. You don't. And so he was getting for free. Okay, they say, okay, now you're all ready. You learn Torah. Now you got to get married and you're going to get out into the world. He says, no problem. So he gets married. Now he hasn't got time to learn Torah. He's out of the yeshiva. He doesn't get food for free. And he gets into the world. Now he has to do everything. So it's 1 second. When I was in the yeshiva, everything came from God. It was like manna from heaven. And the yeshiva, you believed in God. Of course you believed in God. There was no contradiction. Now you get into the world, all of a sudden I have to do it. If I don't go to work, then there's no food. I have to do it. Where's God? What's going on? Right? God is not here. All of a sudden you realize even more. The more that I work, the more hours that I put in, the more money I make. Right? And then one day you have a chance to learn Torah, you have a Torah learning, and all of a sudden, exactly at that time, you get a phone call, a big business deal. You could say to the person, listen, I learned Torah right now. Can you call me back in an hour? No, you don't say that. You listen, and you get the deal. You make the money. Ooh, so you see, here, look, I sit and learn Torah. What do I get out of it? And here, I didn't learn Torah. I got $100,000. I got $1 million, right? Suddenly, little by little, you start to realize that, maybe the world is more real than they told me in the yeshiva. Maybe the world is more on me. It's not God's world, it's my world. And little by little, a person starts to say, okay, you know what, I'll put on a kippah, I'll go to the synagogue on Shabbos or whatever it is, but it's not, So he says, that's a big problem. That's called exile. That God, let him stay in the synagogue or stay in the place of learning, but the streets, that belongs to me. That was the beginning of the reform movement in Germany. You have to be what's it say? Adam Yehudi bebeitecha, for Adam betzeitecha. You have to be a Jew when you're in your home, but you have to be just a human being when you're out in the streets. He says that's the idea of Nisan and Iyar. Nisan is a month of miracles. Everything is done by God. Everything is fixed up. The month of Iyar, you have to start doing things on your own. What is the power that joins them together? Says that's what's called beauty. Tiferet Shabbat Tiferet, the second day of Iyar. There's a special blast of godliness that comes down and says that a person, 1 second, the reason I have to work and the reason I have to be is because God wants me to. I'm not doing because of what I want to. And when it comes down to a question of should I do what God wants or should I do what I want, is, you know what, I'm going to do what God wants. I'm going to lose $100,000. Okay, listen, it's not my money. It's God's money. If God wants me to make money, I'll make the money in a way that God wants. Right? The opportunity will come. I have to be a good businessman. I have to work, but not, go crazy. When a person acts in that way, but it's a power which is above, so to speak, miracles and above the world. It's a higher power. It's called God, making God revealed in the world. That's Tiferet Shabbat Tiferet. The Odzot, and even more, the month of Iyar that we're in now. These are the first letters of Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and Rachel. Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and Rachel, that's Iyar. That's the four, it's called the four, feet, the four bases of God's chariot. Huh? I said the four legs of God's chariot. God's chariot, God's is throne. The Inyan B'zeh, what does it mean? That Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, why are they specifically the legs of God's throne? What's the legs of God's throne? What does it mean? If one is missing, God's going to fall over. What's it talking about? Right? It says there has to be four legs to God's throne. That's Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Rachel. But you can't use people. God sits on people. What's going on over here? It says no. The three, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that corresponds to the three legs of God's chariot or his throne. That corresponds to Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, love, power, and beauty, balance. These are what's called lights of God. Rachel, which is the fourth foot, this is what's called Malchut. That's another name for Knesset Yisrael, the Jewish people. This is the vessels. By means of joining them together, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Rachel, so we have the lights of God, the revelations of God, the love of God, the power of God, but it also is found in vessels in the world, in your day-to-day life, drawing down and revealing the lights of God into vessels. So God is revealed not just in the Torah or in the synagogue. God is revealed in your business and how you talk to people and the shoes that you put on and the food that you eat and the money that you spend and the money that you make and etc. Everything in the world is done according to what God wants. So Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that represents godliness. And Rachel, that represents the world. We can even more add on that Rachel, Rachel, this indicates on the highness of our work, physical work, all the time in exile. That whole purpose of us being in exile, working in exile, suffering in exile, praying in exile, is to bring the future redemption. That's Rachel. Moshiach, like it says in the prophecy, that Rachel, what's the prophecy 84? Jeremiah, it says in the prophecy that Rachel cries for her children. It's written on the grave. You go to Beit Lechem. I was there, and Beit Lechem. It says Rachel cries over her children. Ki einenu, because he is not. It should be no, because they are not. It says no, einenu, that he is not that they are not, because God, so to speak, is in exile. God himself has removed himself higher and higher, conceals himself. God is affected by what we do, right? That's what we said. That's Judaism. When the Jewish people don't do what God wants, so God goes away. He removes his, attention from us. We just finished learning about that. God revealing himself in the upper heaven, in the upper court, and by means of what Rachel did, Maseh, all of her work that she did in the time of exile, she's crying for the Jewish people. Ba comes the redemption. Like it says, there is a reward, and that's the end of the sentence. There is a reward for all of your work. God says, Shavu banim legavulam, that all of the Jews, that my children, will come back to the Holy Land. Which by the way, this is the argument that should be used against the United Nations and the Hamas and these people who are for the Hamas or whatever it is. But that's the argument. That's the argument we can make, right? What's the argument we're supposed to make? God promised Rachel, all the Jews are going to come back to Israel. Shavu banim legavulam. That's why Rachel's been crying. She's been crying already for 4,000 years. For me and you. The land of Israel is holy. The Jewish people are holy. And you don't see it. That's called exile. That's called exile. And Rachel is crying. And for sure, the results will be that Jeremiah promised. All of the Jewish people are going to come back to their, where is it? How does it go? Yes, it says, Shavu banim legavulam. All of the Jewish people your children will come back to their boundaries, to Israel. For Orot Elyonim, namely, not only the Jewish people, but God himself, the revelation of God, these upper lights, which are now removed from this world where we don't see God, we don't even know that there is such a thing. Namely, we don't see the real true essence of what the exile is drawn and revealed in a revealed way. If you remember before, let me just finish this sentence and we'll go to this incredible paradox. The essence of God is concealed. Essence of God is concealed. We can't understand what godliness is. The essence of God is Yoshet Choshech Sitra. It says that God makes darkness his hiding place. What God is, we don't. I just finished saying we don't even know what life is, and everybody's alive. No one knows what it is, right? How much more so we don't know what the source of life. We don't know what spiritual is. Spiritual, the angels, we don't know what that is. That's just creations of God. That's just small change for God. What God is totally, totally concealed from us. So it ends up that when God reveals this fact that he's concealed, he reveals his hiding place in this world. What do we see? Hiding place. That's exile. All we see is concealment. But really the concealment That's where God is. That's the essence of God. That's good. So it's the biggest paradox that can possibly be. When God reveals himself, what's he revealing? Concealment. He says, okay, good, 100% that's what it is, but that's not what we want. We want that God should reveal himself in a way that's not concealed. That's not concealed. That we shouldn't. So that means we have to transform the bad, the Metzora, the disease, and see that the disease itself really, if you just turn it around, it's really godliness. And by means of this, we negate any possibility that there can be Yanika Sechetzoni. Like Rachel in front of, it's just, I mean, it just popped into my mind. I'm just, you can unpop it if you want to, but this is what I think. You have a little child, let's say, he all of a sudden sees this really scary person, comes walking to him with this hideous looking face, and he's screaming, daddy, daddy, please save me. And all of a sudden, this person turns around, and you see, no, it was really his father, and he just put a mask on the back of his head. So it looked like it was really scary, with big teeth, whatever it was, really scary. But he turns around and realizes, oh, that was really my father all the time. But the same thing, the exile is just, so to speak, the backside of God. It's the backside of God. It's where God hides himself. So when that's revealed, it's scary. It's showing the concealment, right? So, but all we want is God should just turn around, so to speak, and we'll see that, it was just a mask. It was just on the back of his head. It wasn't really this. So we see that, in fact, there was nothing bad. It wasn't bad. The whole evil man that was there was really my father. That's it. My father said, now I revealed it again, and watch, I'll turn around again. They turn around, now I understand. It's not scary anymore. I realize it's just you. So God will reveal this whole exile was really just him, but it was just him sort of in a turned around way, twisted way, until the opposite of Tahora, of the exile, until the defilement of the time of exile will become, that's Negoim, like we just finished saying, it will become the highest level of purity, exactly the opposite. Then there'll be such a way that it'll be a redemption, that there won't be after it any exile. It'll be impossible. It says we can also attach this to what it says with counting the Omer. When the Rebbe was speaking about this was before. This is Malchut Shebetiferet. No, I'm sorry, Malchut Shebetiferet. This is the last day of Tiferet, of the third week. Right, the Rebbe was saying this on Shabbat. When the Rebbe was saying on Shabbat, so when he was saying it was the last day of the third week. By us, we're learning this in the middle of the week. Okay, so Malchut, the last day of the third week. The third week is Tiferet, and this is the last day, Malchut, of that week of Tiferet. So Malchut means God's kingship, the lowest aspect of God, and Tiferet is beauty, balance. Let's explain this. It says, Behektim, we can proceed. Yeah, let's go. Here we go. Let's precede that counting the Omer that we're doing every day from the highest aspect of the highest of the emotions, chesed shebechesed, love of love, until the lowest aspect of the lowest of God's aspects, which is called Malchut sheba Malchut. So all these 49 days that we're counting, this includes all different types of serving God. Namely, our deeds, our efforts in this time of exile. Whether regarding our soul, like it says to come to fix up our nefesh, ruach, and neshama. That's part of the little paragraph we say after counting the Omer. L'tareinu, l'kadshenu, to refine us and purify us. Ideally, when you say Sfirat Omer, you're supposed to be thinking about this different aspect of the soul. This different aspect of the soul. And like I say, in Chabad, there's people that wrote about this. The one that I read that I really liked is this man called Simon Jacobson. You can look it up. And he wrote a little pamphlet about what the days mean. But there's others also. It's a very, very interesting topic, right? The 49 different aspects of the soul and how to express them in connection to God. How to express them in our service of God. Okay. So it says, first of all, counting the Omer, this is fixing us up. This is also relevant to the world. We're fixing up the world around us. Tikkun olam. Yishba Shefa Rav, that we can bring a blessing of God into all the worlds. That's part of that paragraph. By means of this will come the future redemption, the complete future redemption, the true future redemption, that there won't be any exile afterward. Said God will bring, that's what we say at the end of this paragraph, that we say after counting the Omer. Rachmanu yachzir lanu avodas beis hamikdash, that God, the merciful one, will return the service of the Holy Temple to its place. Bimei Yamenu, quickly in our days, Amen. Maila Yasera, especially in this year that the Rebbe was speaking, that the Passover fell on Shabbat. By us, it didn't. In the Rebbe that the Rebbe was speaking, Passover fell on Shabbat. By us, it fell on Motzi Shabbat, immediately after Shabbat. In any case, counting of the Omer was the day after Shabbat. It comes into sync exactly what it says in the Torah. That then all of the Shabbatot are complete, like the days of Breshit. Like I said, you count 7 weeks and 7 weeks. So in the Torah, it says you count 7 weeks. The ideal way of counting the Omer would be that you start on Yom Rishon, the day after Shabbat, and you finish on Shabbat. 49 days, you count exactly 7 weeks corresponding to the 7 weeks of the calendar, 7 calendar weeks. Calendar weeks end on Shabbat, and they begin on Yom Rishon. When the Rebbe was saying that's how it was. Okay, what does it mean in this? Malchut, so the last day of the counting of the Omer every week always comes out on Shabbat. That's Malchut, that's the lowest aspect. Malchut, regarding the future redemption, and that's the whole purpose, the Rebbe is saying, of counting the Omer, the true king is the Moshiach. And like I know I've said this 100 times before, 1,000 times before, the whole purpose of the creation of the world, the whole goal of Judaism, the only real topic of Hasidut Chabad and Baal Shem Tov in general is Mashiach. The whole movement of Hasidic movement is because the Baal Shem Tov had an experience where he went up to the chamber of the spiritual chamber of the Mashiach, and he said, when are you going to come? And the Mashiach said, when your teachings are spread out. So all the teachings of Hasidut are only to bring Mashiach. The whole purpose of Judaism is to bring Mashiach. The whole goal of the world, of creation, is to bring Mashiach. Mashiach will be a person that will just reveal the truth in the whole world. He's going to be a king. This indicates the power and the assertiveness that the redemption will be without considering anything that gets in our way. Omer Malka Akator, it says, if a king says to do so, then you uproot mountains. That even a mountain, which is the ultimate power of resistance, can be uprooted by means of a king. And even deeper, and since that the chayat, that the life and the existence of all the people in the country and everything which is in a country depends on the king. The king is the life of the whole country. So it's understood that really it's not relevant that there could be anyone that opposes the king. Shahari Kol Metziuto, the whole essence of the idea of someone opposing the king, anyone opposition to the king, if he's part of the country, then his whole existence depends on the king. So there can't be anything that rebel against the king, if the king is a true king. Even though we see that King David, all the book of Psalms is people rebelling against him. Similarly also, because King David was talking about, that's the book of the exile, Psalms. That's our only comfort. Similarly also in the future redemption, Malchut, kingship, the Rebbe, that's the last of the 10 sefirot, of the 7 emotions. That's what we count in counting the Omer. The idea of Malchut, that's the king Moshiach, is stressed that in fact, there really is nothing in the world can oppose the redemption. Nothing is going to stop the redemption. There are some people that say, oh, because of this person, right, he's going to prevent Mashiach, and everybody has to think like me in order to bring Mashiach, and you have to think. Nothing will stop the redemption. Nothing is going to stop Mashiach. Because the whole world depends on the redemption. Like it says in the Gemara, the world was only created, lo ivri alma, elul Mashiach. The world was only created for Mashiach. That's what I just said. Mashiach. Where does it say? Let's look and have a look. It says in the Gemara, and Baba Batra says, the Gemara Baba. The world was only created for Mashiach. Here he also says here, another place, in the Gemara and Brachot also. Okay. The world was only created for Mashiach. Therefore, the fact that the world seems to oppose the Jewish people and it seems to oppose the revelation of Mashiach, this is just an external thing. It's not really real. And it will be revealed by the true idea of what the king is, of the world. The world is really the kingship of God. It's God's world, and nothing can stop Mashiach. The problem is when we listen too much to the world and we agree with the world, then that's an impediment. It's an impediment. But it all depends on each one of us, not on the other guy. It all depends on me. And everyone should say that to himself. The revelation of this kingship of the Mashiach, there is many ways that it can be done. There is kingship of God, how it is in the 7 emotions. Like we said, each week we count one of the 7 emotions, the 7 aspects of the 7 emotions, and the lowest aspect of each one is Malchut. That's Malchut, the kingship in chesed, of love, kingship in power, kingship in beauty, kingship in victory, netzach, kingship how it is in hod and surrender, kingship in connection, yesod, and finally Malchut Sheba Malchut, that's the end of the counting the Omer. According to what the rabbi said, the Rebbe, that the derech yeshar, that the way to bring Mashiach is tiferet. The straight is tiferet, balance, beauty. So we can understand the greatness of this week. The Rebbe was speaking now on the last day of the 3rd week. The 3rd week is tiferet, beauty, and the last day is Malchut, kingship, Malchut of tiferet, Mashiach coming by means of beauty, balance. And even more, that it's not necessary, you don't have to wait and draw down for the rest of the weeks of counting the Omer. Now we're in the 3rd week of the Omer, right? The Omer is 7 weeks. We don't have to wait for the other days. Why? Because if you reach Malchut Shebetiferet, the kingship of Tiferet, of beauty, which that says is that's the straight way. That's the middle pillar, the middle bolt that goes from one end to the other, from the highest of the highest to the lowest of the lows, that you're able to, how do you say, put godliness into everything. So by me, that's Malchut, Mashiach, how it is in Tiferet in a beautiful way. Then you can draw down all of the details of the kingship which comes afterwards. Malchut of Netzach, after Tiferet is Netzach, the victory of the king on the world. Malchut of Hod means the beauty of the king. Malchut b'yofe techasen aneinu says the beauty of the king we will see. That's Hod. Hod means surrender, but it also means beauty. Malchut of Yesod. Yesod means connection, a firm connection, and that will be connected firmly to Mashiach. Malchut Sheba Malchut, kingship of kingship, namely pure revelation of the king of the universe, which is God, will be revealed in the Mashiach. Your kingship, the kingship of Ein Sof, which is above before the Tzimtzum, this will be revealed in the world. Keter Elyon, like it says, the upper crown of God will be revealed in the crown of the Mashiach. What's the Rebbe trying to do here? He's trying to get into it. To put Mashiach into all the 7 aspects of our soul, of our emotions, and express Mashiach in everything that we do. Because what is Mashiach? Mashiach is just making the world the way God wants it to be. Ruling, letting God rule the world and not we rule the world. And there's all these different facets of godliness to reveal the world so that the world remains a world, it remains a living place. We see the personality of God in every detail of the world. That it's drawn down and revealed what's called Malchut Kol Olamim, that God is really the king of all the worlds. That's kingship. So kingship is the last of the 7 aspects that we're counting, and we count it in each and every one of those 7 aspects. Kingship, and true kingship, is the Moshiach. A king, the unique thing of a king is that the king is desired by the people. Memshal, it says that God is a memshal. Memshal is like a dictator. The dictator forces everybody to want him. The king doesn't force everybody to want him. The king, everyone wants a king. The Malchut Ratzon Kiblolim, it says they accept God willfully. And that's the whole idea of bringing Mashiach in a willful way, in a nice, they say, balanced, happy, total, healthy way to bring Mashiach into the world, because that's the goal of the world. That's counting the Omer, that's the Tiferet Shabbat Tiferet, and that's what's going to do away with all this tsarat, all the disease which is in the world, to reveal that everything is really a different face of the Creator. Now it's concealed, then it'll be revealed. This, God willing, will finish tomorrow. Let's stop the share.